The scream starts as a ripple and swells until it fills the stairwell. Small shoes slap the wooden steps. A rain of paper tickets falls from little hands. At the bottom, a narrow doorway is half closed to keep order, just wide enough for one child. The line collapses into a crush. A boy loses his footing. A girl behind him reaches for the rail and finds only someone's sleeve. The weight from above surges forward. The front meets the door and cannot move. They press shoulder to shoulder toward a gap that will not widen. Someone cries for mother. Another cannot draw breath. The door trembles against the pressure, and then everything holds in a terrible stillness that no one can break. The date is June 16th, 1883. The place is Victoria Hall in Sunderland, a coastal town in the north of England. A traveling variety show has filled the upper gallery. Advertisements promised a grand treat and a distribution of presents to those holding special numbered tickets. The show runs bright and loud, conjuring tricks, songs, laughter that shakes the rafters. When the call goes out that presents will be given at the main door downstairs, the upper gallery empties quickly. Children flood the stairs, certain a toy is waiting if they get there quickly. Leaving should be simple. From the gallery, a long stairway twists down to a doorway that opens inward. Attendants, worried about order, draw the door nearly shut and leave a narrow gap to check the tickets. It is an ordinary decision no one expects will matter. The first children reach the gap and squeeze through. The second wave arrives and jams. Those above cannot see what has changed. They keep coming. The staircase becomes a wedge of bodies pressing down. One child slips and falls. Another is pushed and pinned. The pressure multiplies as each step fills with more weight, all of it directed at a door that will not give. In the hall, performers are still taking bows. Parents near the exits look for their sons and daughters and see only the backs of other adults. A man opens the door at the foot of the stair and finds the gap blocked solid with children jammed together. He pulls, but the door opens inward against their weight and will not move. A constable throws his shoulder into it. A worker tries to lift children over the rail. More hands pry at the hinges. Someone breaks a panel to drag a child through. Each pull frees one child and no more. Those stuck behind do not know help is inches away. The noise sinks from shouting to the low sound people make when air runs out. Word spreads through the street. Neighbors rush to help and find policemen, doctors, and laborers on their knees, lifting and lining the floor with tiny forms. The stage becomes a treatment area. Jackets turn into pillows. A woman kneels and presses a little chest until it rises once. Another tries again and gets no response. Parents stagger from one face to the next, looking for a ribbon, a scuff on a boot, a particular shade of hair. Some find their child's hand warm. Some do not. By nightfall, the count is unthinkable. 183 dead. The youngest is 3. Many are between 7 and 10. The town's streets hold a quiet that feels like ice. Church bells toll and then stop. Newspapers call it a calamity, as if the word could contain it. Houses pin black crepe to door frames. A single day has made the walk to school shorter. Classroom chairs sit empty. Names are whispered and then avoided. The investigation begins at once. Coroners take testimony in rooms that still smell of lamp oil. Witnesses explain the sequence in plain words. The door at the foot of the stairs was left nearly closed to control the flow of children claiming gifts. It opened inward. Only a narrow gap remained. When the rush came, the gap became the mouth of a funnel. Children fell. Others piled on top. The pressure locked the door. Those above never knew what waited until they were part of it. An engineer lays out the mechanics. Stair width, door swing, line of sight, crowd momentum, and checkpoint control created a single failure point. A body's weight multiplies when it is pushed from behind. On a packed staircase, 30 children pressing down make a force no adult can reverse. A door that opens inward becomes impossible to pull against a human wall. The narrow gap meant to keep order did the opposite. It trapped the first children and locked the rest behind them. The inquest jurors listen to parents with red eyes and careful voices. They hear from attendants who thought slowing the stream would prevent a crush. They hear from doctors who explain as gently as they can that most deaths came from asphyxia. Air forced out, no room to draw it back in. There is no murder, but there is fault. The verdict calls for change. Halls must provide exits that cannot be latched into narrow gaps, that open outward and swing free, letting a crowd push a way clear. The call does not end on paper. City authorities issue new rules. Inspectors walk the stairs of theaters and lecture rooms and mark which doors swing outward and which do not. Designers and ironmongers set to work on fastenings, bars that yield to pressure from the inside, bolts that slide free with a push, fixtures that cannot be held against a crowd. What later generations call an emergency push bar takes root here as a correction born of loss. Grief settles into routines. Funerals follow one after another in a town too small to absorb it all. Hearses move in a slow line. Children are carried by fathers, uncles, and neighbors because there are not enough horses for all the work of mourning. A fund starts for families who have lost more than a child. Years later, people still mark time by the disaster. Before the hall, after the hall. Behind the statistics are rooms. A mother presses a ribbon into a Bible because it is all that is left. A brother wakes from a dream where his sister is asking if he got a toy and he cannot answer in the dark. A teacher writes names in a roll book and then closes it because the page looks wrong with so much space at the end of the line. The town builds a memorial in the park, stone figures and a list of names to say the children did not disappear into a number. The memorial gives people a place to stand when words will not do the work. Time dulls nothing, but it teaches. Managers reading handbills that promise present start thinking about stairwells, not applause. Fire brigades drill in halls not yet on fire, practicing how to force an inward opening door and clear a stair. Ushers learn to count more than tickets now. They learn to scan the flow of shoulders and stop a surge before it forms. Architects sketch exits first. A simple phrase enters the language of safety. Keep the doors clear. The story ends in the same place it began, at a door. Stand at the foot of any public staircase, and you can see the lesson in the hardware. Bars push outward. Latches release in one motion. Signs point not to treats, but to exits. None of it brings back the children who never left Victoria Hall. It does something quieter and longer-lived. It makes it ordinary for a large crowd to leave a building without incident. Safety is invisible when it works. It is built from other people's worst days. Parents in Sunderland learned this the hardest way. They sent their children to a show on a summer afternoon and expected noise, laughter, and a small present to hide under a pillow. They did not expect to gather at midnight to identify the quiet face of a child who had left home with a ticket and a smile. They did not expect to see rules rewritten because of something as simple as a door left nearly shut. Out of that mistake came a change that has protected millions of strangers. It is a poor trade, but it is real. Thank you for listening to Road to Ruins. Subscribe for more true stories where systems fail and people pay the price.